This is Phantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Knights of Wind and Truth? This is Steven, your host with Phantology Podcast. I have my lifelong friends, Jake and Josh here, and we're going to hit you with a what you need to know in preparation for the Stormlight Archive, Book 5, eagerly anticipated all this year, Knights of Wind and Truth coming out in early December. So we've been prepping and rereading for a majority of the year, and I mean, we're fans. We're not going to know all the details, but we're going to try to summarize main points and get you up to speed in case it's been a little bit as far as, what do you need to know in order to remember and continue the story of this massive series.
Yeah, I think we're going to have more of like a conversation about it. It'll be more of a conversational tone rather than make sure we hit every single plot point of.
Yeah, not a video essay. Not a video.
It's not a video essay. If you want a great video essay that looks at all of the Stormlight Archive, check out Bookborn. She did a fabulous one that kind of summarizes each part of each book, and then Daniel Green just put out one specifically about Rhythm of War, where he goes chapter by chapter through the entire book.
Nice.
So I listened to both of those to kind of prepare for this, but they were both exceptionally well done. So if you just need a straight up, I need to get a fire hose of information in me, probably go there. If you want to hear a conversation about the books, and then well, listen to this either way, but that's kind of what we're going for.
Yeah, don't sell us short, Josh. This of course is your top resource for Stormlight Archive 5 preparation, but there are other things because I guess we're not the only ones with this idea somehow.
Somehow, yeah. Just somehow have to be popular.
Yeah.
I do think it's funny that the solution to not being able to read all the books in time for the release is to watch essentially a feature-length movie on YouTube. I think Daniel Green's Rhythm of War recap is like 2.5 hours long, which
and Bookborn kind of is over an hour.
Yeah, which is funny that's the solution. Like, oh, now I can finally get this information quick.
You at least need 5 hours devoted to just catching up.
Yeah.
Instead of 50 hours, it's 2.5 hours. I guess
it's
you're saving some time.
Yeah, it's a good savings. It's just funny that it's still that dense to get through.
Let me clarify that we are not going to talk about preview chapters. They're out there. We're not going to talk about them now. I think we are going to try to do one more episode of like predictions for Wind and Truth, and maybe we'll go into preview chapters. We need to talk about that. And we also have not read the book from the airport leaks, so we're not going to know any of that stuff.
Oh, is the book out?
There's been some Reddit says it's been leaked at a few airports, and the internet could potentially have spoilers. So watch out for that.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I did not know that.
Apparently, Josh does not follow all of our Discord channels because there was a discussion about that. So Josh, shame.
I do pretty good. If it's during the weekday, I'm on it. If it's over the weekend, I'm not on it.
No.
Probably be reversed.
That was just a shameless plug for good info at Phantology Discord. Links are in the episode description below. So let's jump into it. I think we start with a little overview of each book, talk about character arcs. And I know, in preparation for Wind and Truth, the most relevant stuff is probably going to come from, book 4 and then 3 and then 2, right? Because that's the most recent and those are the big events we're dealing with. But I mean, some people maybe need a little bit of refresh on early books. So maybe we'll cover that briefly, but I think we're going to mostly focus on the later stuff and start to get into plot points and what you need to make sure that you have straight in your head as you roll into the big events of book 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so The Way of Kings released in 2011, I think. So it's been 13 years. And we've all read it many times. At this point, what do we need to remember from Way of Kings in order to prepare for? I mean, obviously it sets the stage. It's got Roshar, it's all Kaladin, but Kaladin's arc continues. I mean, the arc that Kaladin starts in book 1 is very heavily continued through book 4. Although I get a sense that he's in a better place at the end of book 4, and like maybe the majority of his arc is complete. I don't think his character is complete by any means, but it seems like he's not gonna like have these huge wafflings of not wafflings, but like if you were gonna chart his mood, it's not gonna be quite as spiky now. It feels like he's kind of got things under control, maybe
The
compared to what
tension
we've
that
seen
was
before. Yeah.
Yeah, the tension that's set up in Wave Kings for his whole character is his like self-loathing and depression that's caused from not being able to protect other people. And the climax of his character arc in Rhythm of War was essentially a climax to and resolution to that, or
Uh-huh.
maybe just more the climax to that. Him realizing and swearing that ideal of I can't save everybody,
Right.
and coming to terms with that. So I think you're right. In my mind, that is like that's like the central arc of that character, and I'm sure like we'll get more of him coming to terms with that even more so in Wind of Truth, but I'm not expecting any sort of like great emotional turmoil and uh like tension from Kaladin in book 5.
Yeah. Even to the point where
Yeah.
the climax of book 4 was him jumping off of the tower in the same way that he was like considering jumping off the honor chasm. Like there were so many
Yeah.
parallels there between the two.
Yeah.
I will say I do hope that we don't just see like a completely solved character. And I know Sanderson's done a really good job handling like depression and anxiety and and PTSD and everything. So I do think that we won't see just like a chipper Kaladin or a Kaladin that has all of his issues solved, but like has them under control maybe or has learned how to live with them. Um, but I agree that we've probably seen the majority of his arc happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a Kaladin that is more equipped with the tools that he
Right.
needs to navigate his emotional health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think one interesting thing that wasn't maybe on a reread handled the best in terms of one of Kaladin's major conflicts was his like disdain for the Light Eyes. I feel like by the time book 4, like Rhythm of War, like that's just kind of totally dropped, which of course it is because of events of the book. Like he's basically a Light Eyes now. But that was like I feel like even more than the failing to protect and the Way of Kings at least, it was like his disdain and hatred for Light Eyes was really a driving factor for him.
Yeah, I think most of that was resolved, and I agree, not actually resolved, but in terms of plots of the book, at the end of Words of Radiance, with him going back to save
Yeah.
Elokar, you do get a little
Yeah.
hint of it at the beginning of Oathbringer, him realizing that the Parshendi or the Parshmen have essentially been the dark guys of even the dark guys, but it's not like you said. It feels like we that could have been explored a little better, but
Yeah. It's all good. I mean, just an observation, a thought I had while considering Kaladin's overall
yeah.
arc and yeah.
It's
But yeah, so
funny
he kind of
how I
oh,
mean,
go
I feel
ahead.
like in general, like these books move really fast in some ways and really slow in other ways. And once Brandon feels like he's wrapped something up, it's just kind of like done. And
Hmm.
maybe this is one of those things. Another thing that I've never really liked was the way that he just tossed Sadius away. I thought Sadius was a good villain and had some good potential going forward, but then he was just done because his plot was over. And he always continues to like bring in these villains for a book. In Rhythm of War, it was the Pursuer, and then now the Pursuer is
Amaram.
done. Yeah, Amaram,
Yeah.
and yeah, and now I guess in book 5 we're setting up to this like L mysterious creature and Todium, and I don't love that quite as much because I don't know, like the main characters, we love them because they've been around for so long and we've seen their whole journey, but then these villains are kind of like one-offs almost.
Yeah, yeah, I think that Taravangian is going to be the villain
Yeah,
throughout the entire
yeah,
series, of
that's
course. And I think that he's doing handling
okay.
that really, really well. Yeah.
I guess we'll have to get into that more in our like predictions as to what we think will
Yeah.
happen with Odium slash
Well,
Todium.
kind of, but he is now Odin. He is now like the,
Well, I
evil
know, but
force of the world.
could that be resolved in book 5, and could we see something else in the
Yeah,
second half of the series? Maybe.
maybe.
Yeah, so Kaladin's arc in Way of Kings really serves to like kind of showcase what it means to be a Knights Radiant, I'd say.
Mm.
I feel like in terms of like moving the plot and everything, he's that emotional connection there. Um, which I think he's done a great job this whole time. And at this point, like we're just excited to get more from Kaladin, right? Um, I think maybe like Shallan's and Dalinar's POVs had more plot importance in The Way of Kings in terms of the overarching series plot. Like Shallan is investigating
Okay.
with Jasnah, like who are the Void Bringers? Like it's hinting at, this ancient evil is coming back in some way that's bringing that tension. And you kind of have something similar with Dalinar with the visions. Like you have like the prologue that shows the Oath Pact being abandoned, and then Dalinar's kind of like getting some information there. It's interesting. Like I feel like those are like moving the plots of the series on further, but really you're mostly in Kaladin's head, and it's the most entertaining, even though it's just so human, so great.
Yeah. Kaladin's the human piece that's actually like the connective
A
tissue
pawn, yeah,
between like all
yeah,
these big things are possible and have happened, but like what's going on now? Well, okay, this like Bridgeman slave guy is actually the one that's doing these cool things nowadays.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, it kind of feels like I've said this before. Wave Kings, the first book, could almost be like a short story in terms of pacing. Not maybe not pacing in terms of like everything that happens. Like it's just this really deep emotional journey in Kaladin's head, but spanning 1,000 pages
Uh,
in a great way. But
should we rather than going through book by book, maybe we should just do character by character because I think
okay,
that
cool.
Kaladin discussion went pretty good
Yeah,
and going book by book may be a little choppy.
yeah,
So yes, okay. So let's say we've covered Kaladin, and now let's talk Shallan, and obviously go back before book two, but book two is her book with all of her
yeah.
flashbacks, and yeah. So Shallan up to this point, she's kind of, I mean, going into book five, she's kind of in the same boat as Kaladin, where she has a lot of trauma and emotional issues that she has been working through, and she's in a better place. We don't believe it's totally resolved, but most of the issues are in a have are healthy now for her.
I would say
Yeah.
that the difference between hers and Kaladin's, from my perspective, is her issues have finally come to light. Like it feels like we finally have full transparency of what has been ailing her, whereas in the previous
Mm,
books, it's kind of been revealed piece by piece. And so I don't think she's as like emotionally resolved and healed as Kaladin is. And that still has to happen. But I think she at least understands what has like where she stands and how she, can move forward to make those
that's
changes.
true. I think that's a little connected to their two different orders where she's withholding all this information and she needs to
Yeah.
speak truth in order to advance and the moment where she was her formless persona and she was going to go and kill Kalek and she decided not to,
Mhm.
like that was a big turning point for her, and it feels like she's, I mean, at the beginning of book four she was lying about being in a stable relationship with all of her different personas. Now she seems to actually have something that will hopefully be stable.
Yeah.
So backing up, let's back up a little bit for Shallan.
Yeah.
So she starts off the series by trying to steal the soul. What are they called? The Fabiol, the
Soulcaster.
Soulcaster from
Uh-huh.
Jasnah, who and she totally fails in that. It's kind of funny. It's like almost more of a comedic part of the first book. I feel like it's a little bit more lighthearted than the depressing Kaladin chapters. And
Yeah,
she
she's like the wide-eyed young princess that's going off to explore the city and kind of has
yeah,
those like Disney vibes almost to
yeah,
start. Yeah.
yeah. So she fails in that, and then she goes and in the beginning of book two, she becomes Yasna's ward. And she finds out, like you can find out that she can also, also Night Radiant. Um, and yeah, so
I
that
mean, Yasna's ward, but then Yasna immediately gone
immediately
from
dies.
the
Yeah, well,
picture. And so
dies.
then yeah, dies, right? And then she's got to go off on her own. And book two has a lot of growth for her because now she really
Mhm.
does have to, she tricks her way through the entire book and at the end of it, like does a pretty good job for herself and arrives through the rest of the series in a good position.
Yeah. So book three is when and we find out some things in book two. So we find out just we'll cover everything in her past. We find out really three, I'd
Well,
say,
not everything,
huge.
right?
Well, pretty
There's still
well,
some
not at the end of
mysteries.
book two. I'm just saying, like, we'll cover everything right now that we know
Oh,
of her
okay,
past,
sure.
like the big things. So the kind of, I'd say three biggest things is that one, she killed her father. Um, I think that's the first one we find out. Anyway, we kind of go anyway. We find out that she kills her father, and then we find out that we had assumed that her father had killed her mother, but we find out that she had killed her mother because her mother had found out that she had bonded a spren and wanted to um her mom wanted to kill her, right? Because she
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah, there's
prevent or
there's a lot of factions in on Roshar, and at least one of them thought that if they killed the nascent radiance, it would prevent a desolation. And it
right,
seems that that was maybe the motivation of her mom.
right.
Maybe.
And
Although that's
then
another one we can talk about in our like
Yeah,
theories
although
it's
we
video.
yeah,
yeah,
that's an assumption.
the third one, the kind of craziest one, maybe it's just because it's newer that it's crazy, is that she killed her mom using a shard blade and that it was not pattern that was the shard blade, but it was another spren that she had bonded, and then out of grief and out of not being a kid who didn't understand what she was really doing, she then broke her bond with the spren and made her spren into a dead eyes. So
Testament is that
Testament, yes,
FYI. Yeah.
Testament. Sorry. Yeah.
And
And
along the
so
way, we also realize that she has some sort of split personality
well, yeah,
going
and
on.
kind of yeah, and so in order to cope with those
Hmm.
things, she comes up with her split personalities, which veil, which um is named that to prevent, like, to be a veil preventing her from, protecting her from what she had done in the past. And then you have Radiant, which is kind of her ideal kind of light eyes woman, like what she needs to do when she needs to duel, what she or battle, and kind of what she kind of spends a lot of time trying to impress Adolin doing. And then Shallan, and then the lurking issue and the underneath the surface is Formless, who is trying to like engulf her and kind of subsume all the other
Yeah, I kind
parts
of
of her.
in by Rhythm of the War, I interpreted that as Shallan being another personality and Formless kind of being this more
Uh-huh.
base version of her, like because Shallan couldn't remember a lot of things because she had essentially created this. Okay, this personality is like me, but without any of the trauma. That's how kind of I understood it. I don't know if that is full
Maybe
canon, but and that's why I think there's still like we still need to see that full growth of her or full healing of her character
we
to
do.
see
Yeah.
like how these all resolve together. But
Yeah, and for
Anyway,
every character, like the whole theme of accepting the pain of life is a big
yeah,
thing. It's not just Dalinar, Kaladin, Shallan as well, like all in kind of different ways. But yeah,
yeah.
I for what it's worth, I know a lot of people have a lot of mixed opinions about Shallan. I really like her. I think she's been handled really well. I think that she's been interesting to follow, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with her in book five. So,
Yeah, she's suffered some of the most trauma, I'd say, from like an earliest age out of the characters, and has had some really like overarching, series wide plot importance in fun
mhm.
ways. I think I'm not a fan of her quips. I'm not a fan of Sanderson's humor in general, so that kind of stuff doesn't land for me. But as soon as we got to Words of Radiance and really diving into her backstory, I think she's a really well fleshed out character that way. But
Nice.
thoughts on her
Cool.
Ghostblood participation
oh yeah, we didn't
and
even
that
talk
group?
about that. So
Yeah.
She's
in all of this, she ends up getting recruited into the Ghostbloods, which are the this Cosmere-wide secret society that, at least on Roshar, seem to be pretty shady. They're the ones who tried to kill Jasnah multiple times. And was it one of her brothers that had joined the Ghostbloods at some point?
Halloran was joining the Skybreakers, not the
Skybreakers.
Ghostbloods.
I
But
feel like
and I think this guy
her family owed her family was involved with the Ghostbloods somehow. I can't
yeah, I
remember who
remember her
all.
her father's
and this
servant had the Ghostblood tattoo, and I
Yeah.
don't remember exactly how it tied in with her father, if he was or not, but there was definitely, yeah, some
And the
that
Sons
was
of
her-
happening there.
Honor. Yeah.
her family was like the melting pot of all these secret organizations on
Yeah,
Roshar.
because
Yeah.
I think one brother was the Sons of Honor, which was the one that the
Yeah.
kind of division that Amram was in
Yeah.
kind of in charge of. Yeah. Jeez.
I don't think that's true.
Oh, is that
I,
not true?
I don't think that's true. Helloran was
Okay.
definitely joining
Okay.
the Skybreakers.
Well, right,
But-
because
okay.
he was fighting Amaram's army, so he couldn't have
Yeah.
been Sons of Honor. But I feel like all of them are connected to her family somehow. Sons of Honor, Skybreakers, maybe the Diagram, definitely Ghostbloods, somehow.
Yeah,
But-
this like minor Light Eyes family like makes you wonder, is there something more significant happening with this family?
Yeah.
We'll have to discuss in our next video. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the Ghostbloods, it like you guys were saying, they're Cosmere wide organization, and by the time you get to Rhythm of War, end of Rhythm of War, really a lot of these things are connecting to his other stories, Brandon's other stories. And if you don't know them as much, we're not going to get into spoilers, but it is revealed that the leader of the Ghostbloods is someone who is also known as the Lord of Scars, and that is indeed like the person that you're thinking it is from another series, if you've read it. So stuff like that is exciting if you are Cosmere aware. If you're not, you're just kind of like, interesting. But yeah, like Thydakar and their whole mission of trying to move investiture off world and figure out how to like learn more about cognitive shadows and see if they can get Thydakar away from his world that he's trapped in, because he's got the same thing going on that the Heralds do. Like that stuff's all pretty interesting. I don't know if it's going to be crucial to Wind and Truth. I kind of doubt that we're getting that far into like the Ghostbloods mission, but for sure, like the Ghostbloods will continue to be a big part. And I'm interested to see what exactly they do, because they're a group that I've always kind of like, I guess I care what's going on with this plot point, but it's like kind of unclear to me how important it actually is. But now that we're getting into book 5, like it does seem like they are kind of exciting and more important. So maybe if Brandon can tie that all together for me, I would like that plot a little more.
Yeah, I don't want to, yeah. I want to stay away from the preview chapters as much as possible, so I don't really know how much I can say, but we know but yeah, so we learned that Ghostblood's main goal in Rhythm of War is to find a way to, I guess it's like two parts of the same goal: transfer investiture off world. They mentioned they think perfect spheres would be a great way to do that. And we've had hints that there aren't as many perfect spheres in circulation as you'd expect, so somebody's hoarding them. And then also as part of that, to get Thydakar off his world, which, if I'm understanding Cosmere Realmatics, essentially Thydakar, his essence is made of investiture, so they're kind of one and the same goal, right? If you can figure out one, you can figure out the other.
But a little bit different, because he's tied to his world, like the Heralds are tied to their worlds. So I think they were really interested in like Kalek, especially because they were trying to figure out like what is this relationship? How can we get by this restriction?
But isn't Stormlight the same though? Because I don't think they haven't figured out how to move Stormlight off world, right? Not that I'm aware of.
I don't see why you wouldn't be able to.
I thought
Isn't
that
it?
was like,
Well, that's what they're saying. It drains super fast, like when you try and move it through the through.
I thought that was
space.
part of their main goal was to move Stormlight off world. But
No, I think it is, but okay. Well, let's not spend too much time on this.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know in the comments.
but yeah, in terms of like their impact on the broader conflict going on, like yeah, that seems to be the organization's goal, but they also seem to be involved with some unmade, and so that might be as of now, that is like the main connection they have to the bigger threats.
Very ambitious group of individuals, we'll say.
Yeah.
Josh, did
I
I
don't
miss
know.
anything on the on Shallan's family? Where it
I'm
seemed
sure.
like you were looking it up to fact check me.
No, no, it's fine.
Okay.
There's a lot there that we don't have to
Okay.
get into.
Okay.
So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think that's those are the big things about Shallan is her past, her association with the Ghostbloods, and her relationship with Adolin. I think those are like the biggest
Yeah.
things moving forward that we're
Okay.
gonna have to worry about. Yeah.
Let's talk Dalinar, and then after that, let's try to go a little faster through the characters. But I feel like at
Yeah, those
least
are the
the
three
big
ones.
three
Yeah.
here should cover most of the plot points. So Dalinar's, I mean, he's our
Jeez.
leader at this point. Like he's got a finger in everything, and we trust him. But at the same time, he's figuring things out for himself, and he's gonna be, I mean, I assume going into, well, I guess we don't want to do too many predictions, but I mean, he made the bargain with Odium, not Taravangian Odium, Todium, but with Ray's Odium, and he seems to be preparing to duel or do whatever in this contest of champions in 10 days.
Yeah, that's a great point. So let's set up the stakes a little bit for the contest of champions, and then we'll go back and talk about his backstory.
Yeah.
So my understanding is that if Dalinar wins, then Odium has to leave them alone, right? Like leave for, is it 1,000 years that he has to not try and influence the fused at all, right? And he said that he couldn't control the fused, but that he wouldn't try and influence them. So there still might be a war to fight with the fused after the fact, after the duel, but he won't be an influence on them at all. Um, and then if Dalinar loses, then uh they keep all the land, right? And Dalinar has to go basically work. He has to basically become a fused and be a general in Odium's army.
Yeah, let me just read it. I think you got it right, but
Yeah.
just to be
Okay.
exact
Yeah.
here. So from the contract, which Witt originally wrote, and then there was some negotiations back and forth during this. But so final terms are Contest of Champions to the death. In 10 days, we're going to do this thing. We each send a champion. We're going to meet at the top of year through, and no one else is coming with me. Single combat, right? Of whatever this combat looks like. And if Dalinar wins, then Odium remains bound to the system, but returns Althkar and Herdaz because he made that bargain with the Mink that he was going to help him out with Herdaz, and with everyone intact. And yeah, he says you vow to cease hostilities and maintain the peace, not working against my allies or our kingdoms in any way. I don't remember if it was 1,000 years or not, or if that was like original contract or anyway. But in this little piece of text here, it says cease hostility, maintain peace. So essentially, yes. And then Odium says, if I win, I keep everything I've won, including your homeland. I still remain bound. So no matter what, he's remaining bound, which was the big thing that Witt needed to have happen. And indeed, that is happening in the contract here. And he will cease hostilities, as said above, but he gets Dalinar to serve him immortal. So really, honestly, the stakes are for Dalinar's soul, less control of the currently held lands.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure the thing that is kind of vague for me from this, like either way, Odium is keeping land, right?
Yes, but
Yeah.
maybe not Alethkar and her dad.
Not,
So he's
yeah,
got a lot of the western side of,
yeah,
especially like northwest. I think Erie is that country. I'm looking over
yeah,
at my map. So yeah, he does have a decent chunk of land. None of that will be contested at all. We're really just kind of
yeah.
talking the yeah.
So that's not contested, and then him staying bound to the system is not contested at all, which
Mhm.
makes me think, again, we don't want to get into theories, but like, what does having Dalinar's soul really give him, you know? But like you said,
Yeah.
that's really like that's a key piece to it. That is the key
Well,
piece to this contract.
so and going back a little bit for Dalinar's soul thing is a little bit of lore in the books is that they believe that the Alethi believe that they go fight because they're training to go fight in the Tranquiline Halls, to try and take back the Tranquiline Halls, or take the or have a battle.
Take back the Voidbringers kicked him out.
Of
Just how they got to Roshar. Yeah.
Right. And have to go take back the Tranquiline Halls. And so that's why war and violence and duels and all that is kind of seen as a virtue in a lot of ways, is because really you're just training your soul to go to its eternal war, what it's going to do, what your soul's going to go do after you die. So it sounds like there is some truth to that, with Odium having, a need for generals in an army, right? And in terms of going in, Odium wants to go take over other worlds in the Cosmere, I think is kind of the underlying
right
of what
and
Odium's
Dalinar would not be bound to Roshar were his soul
That's
to
true.
go over to Odium. I just realized when you said it's kind of ironic that their lore is that they're fighting for heaven, like Tranquiline Halls, but in reality, like the way that it played out, Braze is like hell that they were kicked out of. So
well, they destroyed, or they got destroyed.
Yeah.
Well, because I had always interpreted the mythology to come from, they were on Braze, they destroyed it, but the Voidbringers destroyed it because they were essentially Voidbringers at the time under Odium's influence. So they got kicked out to Roshar, and now are trying to go back to win that. I thought it was just a corruption of that, but I wonder if it is like part of that intertwined with deeper mythology from Braze of when Odium ruled them, him saying like, "Hey, I need you to be my army."
Oh yeah.
At some point, kind of like you're saying now with Dalinar. I wonder if there's that even deeper element to the mythology there.
Let's go into talking about Odium and Taravangian and Todium, because at the very end of the book, Odium is kind of after Taravangian, and we'll cover this thing after Taravangian takes up the power. Odium is kind of re-examining the contract and rethinking some things, and it seems like this new version of Odium is going to be a little sneakier. It's going to be a different form of Reyes, Reyes is just described as stupid and passionate, and Wit thinks he's an idiot, but Wit is immediately outsmarted by the new Odium. So it'll be interesting to see, how does this new Odium hold up the contract? Is it going to be different than what was planning to happen with Reyes?
After Taravangian took up Odium, he meets with Cultivation, and Cultivation is basically like, "Hey, this is why I gave you the gift of oscillating compassion, acumen." Is it confirmed that has stopped? Is he still oscillating, or is it done?
I don't know if we've seen enough to know.
Yeah, because that could be really interesting how that plays out, because you find out also that it is not just, was this in Rhythm War? You find out that it's not, at first it seems to be his intelligence varies, but it's not his intelligence just varying. Is he swinging compassionate one day, or is he swinging cold intellect one day?
Yeah. So, no, that's a thing that's discussed.
So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, like you said,
that's a good point. Let us know in the comments if anyone has any idea, if now that he's Todium, does this boon curse thing still hold? I don't know.
Quickly before we go ahead.
Yeah.
I would just say, like you said, he quickly outwits Wit, and this contract is like under deep scrutiny, and seemingly all that was made in Dalinar's efforts at the end of this book are very much under threat.
Before we get off Dalinar, I do want to review a little bit of his backstory, because I think it might be important moving forward. So we far back in time, him and Gavilar, right?
Yeah.
We're going what's that? Yeah. Anyway, him and Gavilar were going, and they basically conquered all of Alethkar. They united a bunch of princedoms and put together a kingdom, and Gavilar was the ruler over it. Dalinar just kind of descended into like basically like alcoholism and warring, and was a pretty bad guy. He met and married Eve. Oh, geez,
Evie was his first wife, yeah.
And and that's when they had Adolin and Renarin, and um, and then the big thing that we find out is that uh, Dalinar basically goes and pillages an entire city called the Rift, and his wife was being held hostage in the city, and he burnt the city basically, and in so doing, killed his wife. He couldn't handle the grief, and so the he sought out
Night
um,
Watcher.
Night Watcher to get a boon, and basically forgot Evie.
Yeah, his
So
his gift, his boon and curse were both that he couldn't remember his wife.
right. And so that's basically he's a really interesting character study. I always like to point out that like Game of Thrones is really good at making you start off hating somebody and then start to like love them. Kind of like Jaime Lannister, you start off hating
Uh-huh.
him, and then you quickly see, not quickly, but over the course of the series, you start to like him more and more. With Dalinar, you start off loving him, like he's basically seen as the ideal Light Eyes,
Yeah.
kind of. And then like throughout Oathbringer specifically, you like are you quickly you learn that you kind of almost start to hate him because you see how
Mhm.
bad of a person he was. And so anyway, that was really interesting. And you appreciate him, I'd say overall now at the ending of where we're at right now is you appreciate his character growth, but you do understand that he's not like he definitely has weaknesses that can be exploited. And
Yeah, and you
it's
understand
pretty,
why
yeah.
a lot of people distrust him and
Yeah,
how he could be seen as just a liability.
right.
Um,
Yep.
yeah. Something else mentioned, this is the second time cultivation's been brought up. This is another, both he and Taravangian went to the Night Watcher. They both got boons and curses, and we find out that that is essentially her way of molding people into maybe not everybody, but those two especially, like the change
It's
she's implementing is a way
it,
to prepare them for a later plan of
it's her
hers.
influence. The way that she influences the world and the events of the world.
But specifically according to plans she has made. It's not like a passive
Right.
influence.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
Dalinar, the reason she removed his memories of Evie is so that way he could grow as a person to become the person he needs to be, and that she also gives him his memories back, which no one else's boons were really affected by the Everstorm, but his was. And she says that that was specifically to prepare him to counteract Odium, because essentially he was being groomed to be Odium's champion
Yeah.
for a long time, and part of that plan for Odium was to reveal the history of Evie before he had a chance to come to terms with that himself. So just again, things to know before starting book 5. Cultivation has had a lot of plans laid, and she thinks she is
We don't
influencing
really
things for
know.
the better. No, she
Well,
says she thinks she's influencing things
she
for the
says she
better.
thinks she is, but we don't really
I
know
mean,
whose side she's on.
her shard is like all about changing, right? And so
Yeah,
whether that be good or bad, like things need
but
to adapt and change and grow.
and from what she talked to Taravangian after he ascended, she also was like, "No, I did this to prepare you because now you are the ideal vessel of Odium." Like that
Yeah.
is like she has
I
had these plans and has been an active participant in affecting
yeah.
change according to what she sees as
If we
best.
yeah, it's interesting because if we think that Wit, if we think that Wit knows how to guide events, then it seems like she's working against a lot of Wit's plans because like Wit would have never wanted Todium to happen, right? He would have never wanted Taravangian to
Mm.
take Ray's place because Wit knows how to influence and defeat
Oh yeah,
Ray's
and
great. So,
yeah,
so
no
it's
one.
yeah,
I mean, she's clearly not aligned with what I think it's like a broader theme in Roshar, where there's a lot of people with good intentions trying to get things done, and they're all counteracting each other. Like Taravangian with the diagram, Sons of Honor,
Yeah.
Gavilar.
I mean,
But
kind of good intentions. Some on a scale of good to self-serving to evil. There's all sorts of groups and
I don't know.
things going on.
I feel like the diagram in Sons of Honor legitimately had what they thought was best for humanity
no, it
goals.
I
had what
mean,
he thought was best for his community.
Gavilar was just trying to be a herald.
No, the Sons of Honor as an organization, though. Gavilar as a person was just, from what I can tell, just taking advantage of whatever he could to become a hero, like become a god as much as he could. But
Yeah.
um,
And same thing with Teravangian. He didn't want what's best for humanity. He just wanted to save his city, which I guess he was
no,
all he thought he could do. I don't
yeah,
know.
he has been described as like the epitome of a
Just
utilitarian. Like
right.
he
Yeah.
is, so he was
if I
trying to
could
do what
save,
he could to save humanity.
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, you could even throw
right.
Wit/Hoyd on there. He said multiple times that his
His
goal is to counteract odium, and if everything else on Roshar has to burn, then like so be it.
yeah.
And
If
we,
the whole, yeah,
we think, oh, like Wit, he's so nice. He tells these fun
yeah,
stories. He loves all our friends. Like, well, kind of, but I think he's willing to make those
Yeah.
sacrifices. At least that's what he said. And Cultivation could be in a similar situation. She's a big question mark for me. Like there certainly are
yeah.
some clues later. There's, of all the words that have been devoted to this story, very few like actual certainties around this character. So it'd be interesting to see if there's a broader role for her in book 5.
Yeah, she's a key player that's been introduced really late that you find out has been affecting huge parts of characters' lives and the plot going forward. So
And hopefully we get a few more of those aha moments in book 5. Yeah.
um yeah, it makes me wonder, would Wit even care? Like, because it seemed like he has a grudge with Rays, right? Like he doesn't have a grudge with the Shard of Odium.
I think he recognizes the danger of the Shard of Odium, though, like in that it needs to be controlled.
But everything that's been brought up has been built up to his like kind of rivalry with Rays.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
okay, so let's keep going through the characters just because we're
yeah.
Um,
Okay, we've got Adolin.
who's next?
I mean, Adolin is certainly a fun character. I think most of the speculation or like things you need to know about Adolin at this point is he's got his Deadeye friend Maya that he has a unique bond with, and this is going to. There's an open question of what happened with the Deadeyes, and we learn at the end Rhythm of War that they chose to break their oaths along with the Radiants, and it wasn't just that the humans killed them all during the Recreants. However, there's still a big question mark around this whole event of the Recreants, and it seems to be tied to this unmade called Baedo Mishram, who I guess we should probably talk about this unmade as well, because this is going to be important for book 5. So quickly, the stuff around Baedo Mishram is this was an unmade who was kind of like Odium Jr. to an effect, where during one of the desolations, this unmade came in and set up what they call a false desolation, where he or she, I think is Baedo Mishram she, I don't remember.
I think she's been talked about as female,
Okay.
but
Yeah, female. Okay. So she came in and she granted the listeners forms at that, or the singers forms at that time, and created this desolation, and then she was defeated and imprisoned somewhere, and then at that time like everything got messed up because of this whole event, and there's a lot of speculation. I don't know if I can really separate like everything that we actually know from the hearsay and theories, but I'm certain that this will be a big part of book 5.
yeah, I mean, she was part of the reason why the Ghostbloods were involved with Shadesmar as well, right? Like they were trying to figure out more about what happened to her. And it's
and Rhythm of War, that was part of Shallan's mission to get to Kalek, because Kalek is a herald who has inside knowledge of what happened during this whole time.
And it's like you said, it's heavily hinted that the Recreants happened not only because the Knights Radiance realized that the surges were what destroyed is it Ashen or Braze, actually? I can't remember which one, the planet they came from, which is the Hell.
Yeah, I
think Ash either. I don't know. But also had something to do
I think Ashen maybe I missed maybe that earlier comment about the Tranquiline Halls was totally invalid, because I'm pretty sure it is Ashen that they came from and ended up
and
destroying,
Braze is the Hell.
Right? Braze is the one with it. Yeah, okay. Scratch my earlier thing. Yeah, go ahead.
So not only was it the surges destroyed that, so that led to Knights Radiance wanting to not be Knights Radiance anymore, but also has something to do with how they defeated Baido Mishram, and something to do with her defeat. And we know that Dead Eyes didn't happen until she was defeated. So there's something.
And the Tower Yurthiru was, the sibling was like
Totally, yeah.
deactivated as a result of this whole thing as well. So
And the
big question
sibling
marks
says-
around this.
The sibling said not just like Dead Eyes, but anything that had a connection to Roshar itself was affected by the defeat of Baido Mishram. Not just the Parshmen, not just the Dead Eyes, but everything.
Like this whole like tones of Roshar and this connection
Yeah.
between the world and the inhabitants, which is hinted at. There's all these kind of deeper connections. It all got messed up during this time.
Yeah. But yeah, so his path is he's seemingly bringing her awake. Adolin's path is bringing Maya back to life. I think the main points of conflict, like you have him and Shallan, like they're a happy couple, but you also have him finding out about his father's past. Like a lot of Rhythm of War was him wanting to not be around his father because he can't forgive him for what happened to his mom.
Yeah.
And so
he feels like
there.
there's some he feels an unbalance between Dalinar's expectation of him and who he actually is, and his, when he killed Sadeas, that was a big thing. Although I still wish it would have been a bigger thing for his character. But yeah, there's this whole father-son dissonance, which I thought was done well in Rhythm of War, combined with the Kaladin Leyland thing at the same time, like makes for some interesting conflicts. Yeah,
I think so too. So his father and Evie, and then him and Sadeas, that stuff causing some big tension between him and Dalinar, and so that's something that still needs to be resolved and explored.
And I think there's this open question of, will he become a Radiant? Will he bond Maya?
Will he give it to the dark side? That's another question.
For a while, I mean, it seemed like he could be the champion.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really a thing anymore, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Navani. So every book is like billed as the book of this character, and that character has the flashbacks. I think Rhythm of War is unique because I feel like it was Navani's book more than anyone, more than Venli / Eshonai, even though they had the flashbacks, because Navani's character like really leveled up from interesting side character to cool main character.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. I mean, her big thing is she has always wanted to basically be a scientist and hasn't really been taken seriously in that. That's what we like see in her prologue chapter, is kind of being spurned by Gavilar in that aspect. And so it's really her character really comes to light in like book 4. She has made some advances in Fabrial technology, and her whole arc is learning more about the tones of Roshar, the different lights. You have basically, I can't remember the exact split, but there's like cultivation light, there's honor light, and I think then there's tower light and void light, and then you can combine them in different ways.
And there's like an anti-version of all of these lights, which is important.
Yeah.
Because when a user of one of the lights, when like that comes in contact with the anti-version, then bad stuff happens.
Annihilation. It's basically
we see that
matter, antimatter.
We see that happen with void light and anti-void light, and then at the end they develop anti-stormlight. Navani doesn't, but Raboniel does. And that's obviously a bad thing to have floating around for our heroes.
Basically, it can neutralize and maybe explosively interact with stormlight. And so if you're so basically you can,
it's kryptonite.
It's kryptonite. Yeah, exactly.
It's antimatter. That's my I like that we all have our own analogies for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, her main thing is she bonds the sibling then, and part of that is like the tension of the sibling doesn't like the way she's enslaving Spren to make these advances, but so she's like another bondsmith. I don't know if we have 3 true bondsmiths going on right now, but there could be at any one time 3. But
I mean, well, we have 2. We don't have there's no cultivation night watcher.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think we're aware of any, or there might. I'm not aware of any. I don't know if any hints have been laid.
Although Ishar exists on the world and like, yeah.
He just has it from his honor blade, as far as we know, though, right? Like, we don't think he's bonded the Night Watcher.
No, I don't think he's bonded any of the big spread.
Yeah.
So forgive me. I'm trying to remember who was the sibling. Like she was just the Tower Spren, right? She or not she, but they.
I think Cultivation created them, but they
No,
are
created together with honor. Like the sibling talks
Did they
about
create it
her
together?
parents.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, her parents are honor and cultivation.
She's supposed to be like a complete mix of them, similar
Right,
to
right, right.
how all the Radiant Orders in general, all their abilities are powered at least a little bit by honor and a little bit by cultivation on a sliding scale. But
Right. Okay. That's what I was trying to remember. So thank you for that.
Yeah. But the important part is the tower is now activated. So going into Wind and Truth, the tower is now awesome and has all these like thousands of Fabrials that are do every which kind of magic. They're all so anyway, anytime we spend in the tower, we can assume is going to be safe, probably. I mean, the tower was deactivated for all of book 4, but at this point we're feeling really good about it. Although we do know the contest is going to happen at the top of the tower. So I mean, that's like within the sibling's domain. Could the sibling influence that? We'll see.
Could they potentially be at risk because of it?
Yeah.
I will say, you either loved or hated the Navani chapters in Rhythm of War. I think I loved them, but I think a lot of people hated those parts of the books the most, because I will agree that pacing was off, but I was really into it.
You know what? I honestly, I think the one thing that really made it work was her relationship with Rabaniel.
Yeah. You nailed it.
Okay, because I just thought that was really, it provided a good foil, I guess you could say, like of just these two people who had some aligned goals, had a lot of goals that weren't aligned, and they were both intelligent. You always didn't. You've gone through the series thinking that Navani kind of knew everything she needs to know and was the master of all the facts, and now she's meeting her match. And so I don't know. I enjoyed her chapters, not just for the breakthroughs and technology, but also for the relationship and the interactions with Rabanael. So
it really humanized the singers, showed that they weren't this like mindless horde of Odium controlled forces. Like Raboniel doesn't like Odium. Like, she's seeking a way to have her like have the singers, listeners, I can't remember who's what, be their own people and be free of this influence and not have to worry about anything either way. And so it really humanized them. And I thought the tension was great of they're at odds with each other, but they both need this breakthrough. And so they have they're down to work together. And then as soon as the breakthrough's made, they have to fight, But,
yeah,
it's cool.
Okay. We have a few more topics. We're going a little long here. So let's try to do 1 minute per topic. So let's talk about Szeth. Szeth is going to get the flashback chapters in book 5. And we know from the end of the book that he is going to undertake his quest to cleanse Shinovar. Sorry, the end of Rhythm of War. He's going to, in Wind and Truth, he's going to go on this quest that he has to do for the Skybreakers. It's going to connect into Ishar, who tells Dalinar at the end of Rhythm of War in a moment of lucidity that he needs to seek him out and he will learn more about the Bondsmiths. And Kaladin is going to be assigned to go with him on this.
Yeah, so I the Ishar thing is one of those really unresolved things that was introduced more in Rhythm of War, and I'm hoping we get a decent conclusion to it by book 5. So that, to me, that seems like the main point of the quest, is to get Szeth's backstory as well as figuring out what other Ishar can do. And in Rhythm of War, it does say that so Dalinar opens a perpendicularity, which brings this moment of lucidity to Ishar, right?
Was it that? I think it also might have been, or maybe only it might have just been Navani's bonding of the sibling at that same moment. I'm not sure exactly what it was.
Maybe it was. He does say the swearing of an ideal will bring this temporary lucidity to him. I thought it had to be someone close to him, but maybe I just missed that. Because of that, I was saying we should expect Szeth to level up in an ideal, which I think his next ideal is to actually
Do the cleansing.
Do the cleansing, yeah. So
hopefully that doesn't get too dark.
Yeah.
I feel for
Just
those
a little
that
bit of
play,
genocide.
for those
to be clear, the cleansing is against like the corrupt priests or whatever that are
That's
messing
Stephen.
with his people.
That's what genocidal people always say. Okay, let's just get that
yeah,
straight.
there's always a reason for
Okay.
it.
There's always a pretext.
Yeah,
Oh
pretext.
no.
I shouldn't say.
Oh
Yeah.
no. What am I doing? Okay.
Real quick, I'm super excited for this. I think it's like the greatest buddy cop, pairing that we could ask for is just like this like trying to be optimistic but normally dour Kaladin paired with like the most stoic person you could ever imagine. It's just like two people like trying to out Sigma each other, and I'm totally here for it. Like in book 5, I'm super excited for it. So
Speaking of Sigma, I am excited for it because Szeth has been the like definition of a beta up until maybe Oathbringer, maybe mostly Rhythm of War. Like he's still basically following other people's orders even after the Oathstone is gone. Like, which is what I'm so excited for book 5 with him, is because we're finally going to see like him untethered, unburdened by these like whatever was telling him he had to just obey these outside forces.
were you about to say burdened by what's been, Jake?
No, I don't think so. Maybe it was that stuck in my head. I wish I remembered the coconut quote to seal the deal right here. But yeah, so I'm excited to see him like rediscovering himself. Like we don't really know his personality at all. Like we've known him emotionally basically insane due to the mental stress he's been under, or just blindly doing what people have told him.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see the individual person within Szeth.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, Bridge 4 plus Moash.
Ooh.
Teft is dead, guys. I don't know how to say it. He's dead. That's the biggest recap.
Rock. We're gonna get a Rock novella. It's not gonna be until after book 5 comes out. At the end of Rhythm of War, we're told that Kaladin will not see Rock again. No further explanation. So something in his journey back to the Hornadir Peaks,
which is where the perpendicularity of cultivation is.
Yeah. So don't know what happened there, but it didn't seem like it went well. And obviously we have the rest of Bridge 4. We've got R'Lain, we've got Dabbid, who emerged in Rhythm of War to be a bigger thing, Scar, Sigzil, several others. They're all around, but really like Moash is probably the one that drives the most conversation.
Yeah, I think the big thing is we see that like Moash killed Teft's Spren, not just Teft, but his Spren, right? And so there's more at stake there.
Using the white sand, like this is another thing where all of the different types of investigator are coming in at the end of Rhythm of War and are going to continue to be a big part of things. So that was, it's cool to it's fun to hear about them because they've been Easter eggs, but now we're actually seeing like we're using the sand in combination with what he killed. I'm assuming with the what dagger was it? It was the Rasium dagger, right?
Which that one captures captures the soul, right?
Okay, maybe we're not gonna. I don't remember what that was. Anyway, yeah. So he did that with something. That's something that can happen.
Yeah. And then the other big thing is Moash after this gets this, or in Rhythm of War gets the title of Vyre, who is the one who silences or something like that. And basically, if not, like he seems to have gotten like the highest status someone can in Odium's army. I know some people think this means he's going to be the champion, some people don't. But it's leading to this big ultimate confrontation between Moash and Kaladin. We keep getting hints of it. And character arc wise, the way it affects Kaladin and Moash is Moash kind of sees himself as like, there's no need to feel pain anymore. We can just give it all to Odium. And it was portrayed in a way where he feels like he's legitimately helping people by doing this. Like no one is going to suffer anymore. We're just going to give it all to Odium. He'll handle it for us. And so he's not just on a mission to like kill Kaladin as much as like convert him to his cause. He's more like a zealot at this point.
And so his story ends in kind of a crazy way in Oathbringer, which I had kind of forgotten about this. But I think when
Rhythm of War.
Yeah, in Rhythm of War. Sorry. I think it's when Navani bonds the Tower Spren. He gets this moment of like having Odium's presence in him kind of wiped away, and
Yeah.
all of the guilt and anguish comes flooding back, and he kind of just runs through the tower and just kind of hurtles himself off of it, right?
Yeah.
And ends up with like being healed from his wounds because when Odium's presence comes back, but he's left blinded, right?
Mhm.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he's left in the cold, like pretty much just wishing he could die because of the guilt from killing Teft specifically, I think was what was driving him the most mad. And then he's taken back in Odium's warm embrace without his
Yeah.
eyesight. Yeah.
Jasnah?
Yeah. She's dating Wit. I don't get it. Don't get it.
What
But
do you not like it? Is it bad? I think it's fine.
I don't get it. I don't get why she
Came out
would
of
want
it
to.
came out of nowhere.
Came out
I
of
mean,
nowhere.
well, so we know she's asexual, right? Like that's pretty on the nose. I think Sanderson said that. And the relationship was mostly an intellectual one, with some like experimentation to see if the sexual side would, she was interested, but ended up being mostly intellectual and a sharing of minds. But yeah, I don't know. It came out of nowhere for me too.
Came out of nowhere, and I don't like the way. As far as we can tell, Wit has not shown her much more than his Wit persona, which I don't know why anybody would really want to be in a relationship with. And then also from Wit's side, a little weird, man. You're pretty old.
It
Like
does
what?
seem,
Like
yeah.
little
I
weird.
think
Little weird.
There's not very many eligible people that are about his same age that he can go shack
He
up
did.
with.
Yeah, he doesn't have to shack up with anybody.
I think as
I
long
mean,
as I
there's
think as long as
cultivation. There's other. Yeah, like
no, I mean, I don't know. As long as somebody is able to make like able to consent,
I just
I
think the
think you're
orders
fine.
of
I think you're
he
fine.
is he's not a human being in the same way she is a human being. You know, like he is orders of magnitude. His mind has been expanded.
Yeah, kind of. He
They're
has to
just not the
offload.
same.
He has to offload everything in breaths. Like I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm
I
just saying. People
all
people
right.
have needs,
Other
Jake.
than other than that
People have
Yasna's
relationship,
needs.
great.
yeah.
Yasna's
Other than
great.
that,
She has some cool battle scenes. She has like positioned herself from scholar to now like advocating for democracy across Roshar. Um, Kind of a favorite to lead, other than the fact that Dalinar is like, I don't know if I want someone who's going to give up the throne leading.
mm,
But I think that's honestly, I don't know if there's much more to that and her full arc.
haven't really explored her backstory too much. I think that's planned for second
Mhm.
half of the series. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, we'll see. She'll obviously be the Elsecaller book, whenever that happens. Renarin, this whole list is like colon family.
Yeah.
Renarin bonded a corrupted Spren, and the corrupted Spren are those who were enlightened by, is it Sha-Anat? I don't know how you
Yeah,
pronounce it.
Janat.
Sha-Anat. And basically, Sha-Anat seems to be an unmade who is similar to, I think, Bado Mishram, where wanted to be independent of Odium, and she's going her own route. She keeps telling people that she's not working with Odium, but she is definitely using Void Light to enlighten these Spren. But so Renarin is not
Truth
what are they called?
Watcher.
Truth Watcher, but an enlightened one. So he has slightly different powers than them.
Mhm. Specifically extra important because he has these visions of the future.
Yeah, and so he was the one in Words of Radiance who had the visions of the future writing on the wall. Everyone was intimidated by. He's come into his own, got a lot of confidence being in Bridge 4, and is now seems to be like key mostly due to his unique situation with his enlightened Spren. Anything else I missed there amongst the books?
Seems like there's a burgeoning relationship between him and Relaine
Yeah.
that
That's true.
we've got
Yeah,
some
that's
we've
true.
got some hints about.
And Relaine just bonded another Sha-Anat Spren. So um
Okay, last character on my list here, since we already talked about Taravangian, was Venli. plus the listeners. And we got a lot of this, a lot of Venli's background. I didn't love it in Rhythm of War, but I think the most interesting thing was she advanced as a Knight Radiant, and we can see that singers slash listeners can indeed do this too, and can be on the good side. They're not just good and evil. And she goes off with a group of other surviving listeners that we didn't know about before, but they're out there in the Shattered Plains, and they've got Chasm Fiends on their side somehow. We don't know anything more about that, but they've got them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot wrong with the pacing of Rhythm of War, but I liked all the information we got from Venli, learning from her character. I think that was an awesome moment. Her kind of being behind enemy lines, and then still being deemed worthy of a sprint. And yeah, I think it added a lot to the messiness that is like these allegiances between species, between powers, between the Spren. There's a lot of complicated messiness in terms of like I mean, a big theme is like, what does it mean to be honorable? What is right, what is wrong, how do you determine that? And I think her story is a great arc to explore that.
A couple other things that are out there but hadn't really got touched on recently. We have other heralds that have like joined up with the crew. So we've got Talon and Ash specifically that do more on Oathbringer. I don't remember them really doing anything in Rhythm of War, maybe minor thing. I don't remember what's going on there, but they do exist as but they're also all kind of crazy, along with Ishar, who's honestly the sanest herald we've seen so far is Kalek. And we know the rest of them are floating out there. Some we've seen Nail quite a bit. I'm not going to be able to name them all, but I'm assuming as the story advances, we'll get more and more interactions with different level of unhinged heralds.
And Yezreen is dead.
Yeah, Yezreen is dead. That's a good one.
Dead.
To know.
Not embraced, sure. Just dead.
Will not be coming back. The Dawnshard novella introduced this big Cosmere-wide idea of the Dawnshards with Rissyn and Chiri Chiri, but that was not really explored anymore. There was one chapter with Chiri Chiri that I think is mostly going to set up for the second half of the series. I don't think you really need to know too much of that for book 5, just a guess.
I think the main importance of the Dawnshards are in Dalinar's visions, and during the Recreant's time, we learned a lot that Honor has been talking about how they need to use the Dawnshards to defeat Odium, but nobody knows how. And it was right before he died, and so it seemed important, but nobody knows how. And yeah, it's hard to tell if this is going to be a book 5 or book 10.
It just seems hard to make this the thing in book 5. There's a lot of balls juggling, as you can tell from our conversation the past hour plus, and it just seems weird to me that we're going to force in something new. Which my last point is something that's being forced in and is new. Is L is the name of this new seems like a big bad that's going to be
used to be Vire.
The previous Vire, and this Fused is just barely coming back. There's some interesting stuff in the way that he views humans. I don't remember all of it. The last section of book 4 is writings from him, his musings. And so this is another candidate for the champion, and maybe in our next video we'll do a deeper dive into who L is and why this could be the champion.
Yeah, basic story is he at one point didn't want to kill all humans and wanted to unite them, humans and singers.
Unite them.
And for that reason, he was stripped of his title. And he's and stripped of the rhythms. He has no rhythm. He can't hear the rhythms of Roshar. So he seems to be this, again, another faction amongst himself in this conflict. And I feel for that reason, he probably will have a bigger connection to Taravangian's Odium for his. Because I feel Taravangian still wants to save humanity. He has big goals for it. We can get into that for the speculation stuff, but he's not motivated by these grievances that Ray's was, and so I think it's going to change a lot of the focus. But still a lot of unanswered questions, and I assume we'll get into those more. But Tal never broke. How did all this start?
So who did? Right? Yeah, let's talk about that stuff. That video will come out hopefully right around the time that Wind and Truth comes out is our goal for that. So you can watch that, get super hyped, and then like roll right into the book and see how we got all of our speculation colossally wrong.
Yeah.
If you want to talk with us, we are going to do like major focus on Wind and Truth, read along channel, all of that. We have a bunch of people in the Discord that are happy to chat and happy to make groups. I know there's a lot of places that exists on the internet. But if you want to join another one, our Discord is below. Hop on and let us know, what comments you have, what we got wrong, etc. We always love to get new voices in the community.
Nice.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Jake.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys later.
See ya.
See ya.
Peace.